Hi, Founder fans, Jason here, and today's founder is Felix Ward. Now, you've probably never heard of Felix Ward because he is the star of an upcoming comic series created by none other than our friends joining us today, Scott and Rory from Steam Patriots. Gentlemen, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, our viewers today are familiar with the American Revolution. They might not all be very familiar with steampunk. I, as we discussed leading into this, am a huge steampunk fan. Maybe you guys could lead us off actually by giving us a little description of what steampunk is.
Yeah.
Is that too
It's steampunk typically, usually in a Victorian England setting where everything is still predominantly steam powered. Everything's very irony and leather and wood and bulky and billowing steam. If you think back to the old Wild Wild West show or movie, it's a good indicator of it.
In what was that Peter Jackson movie that just came out a couple years ago? No, Infernal Engines. No. Oh gosh, I'm sorry.
Well, I think Infernal Engines is steampunk, so I understand usually it's associated with brass and goggles.
Yep. And gears.
Yeah,
a lot of gears. Yep.
Yeah, gears, exactly. It's in the future, but it's also in the past.
Right.
And you guys have decided to take an American spin on steampunk.
Yes,
Yes,
we have. Yes.
All
we
right.
thought if it all takes place, in this sort of mid 1800s era, sometimes in the future, but either way, it has to start somewhere. And we thought it's very heavy with a British influence in the helmets and the top hats and that look. Why not make it American? And then why not, if we're going to back it up to an important time in history, why not make it during the American Revolution?
Right. And as we were saying just before we started, steam power was coming around about this time. It had already happened in England, but yeah, in America too.
Yep.
There were actually a lot of patents for which back then would have been considered high tech or futuristic weaponry and scientific equipment. So it was there, just not it wasn't in mass quantity.
Yeah, there's a little obscure. There's a gentleman named Tench Tillman who works with Alexander Hamilton early in the war, and he gives a speech the week before the Constitutional Convention, and he's talking about manufacturers, and he specifically says steam power to the delegates to the Constitutional Convention. But you gentlemen, you start your story. You're the hero of your story is a fictitious character, Felix Ward. But you were saying you were doing your best to stick to the actual history. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, we wanted to give put a character in there that people would recognize. So Ben Franklin. I don't know if anybody in America doesn't know the name Ben Franklin. And so what we had him do, he tweaked the steam technology, and then in our world we've created these Franklin boilers that are becoming part of mainstream technology. So Felix Ward is fictional, and he's got a great memory. This memory to remember just about everything he sees, and then that ends up making him kind of a fantastic mechanic because he can put all these pieces and parts together, and so it's like the steam technology is ready made for him, and he's ready for it. Now I don't think we coined the term, but we're calling him a mechanician. I think it sounds steampunky.
That's very fun. It absolutely does.
So we thought at the beginning of in this era, you would need mechanics. So he and his dad are some of the few mechanicians in the late 1700s while this technology is emerging, and that's not all of that is told in our story. We're going to reveal it. We've tried to reveal it, but so people get little tidbits of that information, that background. And Franklin had his philosophical society and his junto, and he had people from various trades, and they would meet and talk industry and philosophy and politics. And so we thought, well, if he has printers and all those people that are in there with him, why not have a mechanician in his society? So that's how we made that connection to Franklin.
Yeah.
And as I like to describe it, the technology is only slightly more convenient than having an actual horse and carriage.
Right.
Something will always go wrong.
Still breaks down a lot. We thought it's got to be clunky. Everything's got to be like multiple levers to go forward, or to turn off the steam valves, and so and it will be. There's a little bit of sci-fi thrown in. I always love, like, in some steampunk iterations, you have a steam-powered jetpack. How is you got to suspend disbelief.
Or the steam-powered laser guns.
Yeah. Is there a boiler? Are they putting logs in this?
Yeah, but the idea that you're looking at it from the inception of steampunk is very fascinating. I've never seen that. We should clarify for the audience that the first edition of Steam Patriots has not yet been released. So
Correct.
we're not going too deep into the story. And I will, throughout this, remind everyone there is a link in the description below, because you gentlemen have just recently launched a Kickstarter campaign.
Yes, our publisher, Silverline Comics, is on May 13th launched the campaign, and will go till May 30th. And
so we're right in the heart.
Yes. We're alongside another great title, Divinity, and that's a great kind of a spy action thriller story. So people get a special book, a flip book, if they back the campaign. So it's the only chance they get to get this double book.
Excellent. So, as I was saying, we're not going too deep into your story in particular, because we're looking forward to that being revealed in the future.
Yeah.
But you have told me you start the story with the Battle of Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you, is there any particular reason you found the Battle of Brooklyn as a convenient jumping off point, as opposed to the Siege of Boston or Yorktown or anything of that nature?
It was convenient.
Yeah. I wish we could say we had some great reason, but in looking at history, we wanted it to be the beginning, because we wanted to get the most bang for our buck out of the whole war.
Sure.
And then Siege of Boston is like a lot of slow, and then
parading around.
Yeah. And then there's, and it is kind of funny with wars of yesteryear. There's a lot of sitting around and looking and wondering, and the enemy's right over there, and they wait. So we thought it's a momentous time. There was hundreds of ships in the bay, and
You could have big grand scenes.
yeah, it'd be big, and it's almost starting at what
The might of the British Navy sailing into New York. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's it.
So if they go to the campaign, and I don't know, you might have some images as well. We've got a great image of the harbor, and again, a little fancified. We take our licenses here, our liberties, and but the British soldiers are coming ashore on their long boats, and it opens with a scene, and someone's driving a boiler carriage, and he's saying they've come ashore. It's an invasion, and so that gives a drama right off the shot, and then creates a situation for our heroes where they've got to make a decision what they're going to do.
And forgive me if I'm prying too deep. Again, we're waiting for the product to be released. But does it start off with steampunk already present, or is it first starting to be developed as the story goes along?
So it starts with it already present. It exists, but as the story progresses, it will gain more traction.
And we want it because, just like at any time, war seems to accelerate any technology. So there will be the questions of what do they do with the technology, and how much should they use, or where should they go with it. And of course, the military wants it. There needs to be a civilian use for it. So yeah, it will progress. We haven't decided how quickly if the story is popular enough and we get to 1781, we don't know where the technology will be by then. We still want to leave a lot of room, and if if in an ideal world and Steam Patriots is just a runaway hit, we'd love to just keep going through history, Barbary pirates and War of 1812, because we're in Western New York,
so much.
Battle of Lake Erie. If we could get burning a buffalo and a Battle of Lake Erie, we're kind of like
Oliver Hazard Perry.
Yeah, we would just love to be able to throw in a little closer local for us geographically. But there's so much we could do, and we have ideas for one shots and one offs, and
following the exploits of individual characters that you could really explore, but keep it short enough to be straight action.
Yeah.
Right. And to piggyback what you were saying before about how war usually spawns innovation, I mean, it's not long after the British invade New York City that they have the first submarine, the
Right.
turtle,
Yep. Yep, the turtle,
which
yep.
is not quite steampunk or yet. Wink,
So
wink,
close,
nudge,
so
nudge.
close.
The handles, the gears, the prop, and
Yeah. Oh, I'll be throwing you hints. I've said it before. I told these gentlemen. I don't know if I've said it since we started recording yet or not, but I've worn steampunk garb in the past. I am very excited.
Yep.
So the first edition, is it one book, or are you planning to release a series at first?
So the first issue is 1 of 4. That is what our
Okay.
Yeah, the first arc.
Yeah,
So
I
issue
like
number
steampunk,
one-
but I don't know enough about comic books. I'll be honest.
So the comic books, you'll hear the word floppy, and it's shown that a traditional 22 or 24 page comic book, that you buy off the stand. So issue number 1 is 24 pages, and then we'll have 2, 3, 4. Silverline is ready to publish those as well when they're all done. They're not number 1's done. 2, 3, and 4 will be done soon. So that will, and I don't want to reveal where that one ends. We have that already plotted out.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. We don't want to spoil too much.
Yeah. If it keeps going, we'll probably keep going in. I don't know, chunks of 4, however it works out to tell the story. 3 or 4 part stories fit a good model. It gives you a way to plot out the story. So
that makes a lot of sense.
In the next probably year, we'll get all of the through number 4.
So you did mention Benjamin Franklin. Are there any other figures from American history that we might pop in? Can we do that without spoiling too much?
So Battle of Long Island, George Washington was there, and so we get just a brief glimpse of him. What we didn't want to do is have Felix be like a Magic School Bus episode where he's flying around and he's present at this and present at that. We wanted to keep it believable.
Keep the timeline going. You can only be in so many places.
And so in this first year, Ben Franklin's going to be integral. And we were saying we try to find little bits of history that were poor, not well documented, or maybe we don't know what happened. So Battle of Long Island, Nathaniel Green wasn't present, and history says he was ill. So we thought he might be a good character to use because we never want to take from someone's real accomplishments. So if he was ill, okay, well maybe he wasn't, in our world. So he can go off and do something. We do have other characters in mind. I don't know if there's anybody we can.
Well, don't spoil too much. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm already fat. We love Nathaniel Green in these parts.
Yeah.
I regularly say, I think in the episode that came out yesterday, I said Nathaniel Green is arguably the most underappreciated, at least military man in the history of the Continental Army. Like, he essentially wins the American Revolution.
Yes. Yeah. And talking about the Siege of Boston too, that would be an amazing one shot. Follow General Knox. Like, what a chubby bookstore owner who goes off and does, and so just to put a little steampunk twist on it would be so cool. Gets all these cannons from Fort Ticonderoga. And Fort Ticonderoga is not far from you where you are geographically, and then we would love, as the story goes, if we go through. We're hopefully going to continue to keep you through. Sullivan Campaign comes close to us again geographically.
Sullivan Campaign is the only history from the Revolution I actually have in my part of upstate New York.
Yes, yeah. It's
that, and Lafayette came through.
Right.
Lafayette, and you guys are out by Rochester, right? Batavia, so I'm sure Lafayette came through.
Yep.
That's what we get out here.
That's it. We get these little bits.
Atrocities against Native Americans and Lafayette as an old man.
But there's so many things we can draw from, and that's been one of the hardest parts for the two of us. Is it's like we go through we're reading online or whatever, and we have 200 browser tabs open because we keep open a new tab,
Yep.
and then all my books have little flags dog ears and highlights, and I keep an Excel spreadsheet open just to keep typing. I try to keep it chronologically, and this happened, this person, and then we throw away, I don't know, probably 95% of it because
it's so much. I mean, it was remarkable how well documented the revolution was.
It's one of the fun things about studying it.
Yes.
Like it's I guess you could say they knew it was happening, but it's so interesting because they kept copies of the letters they sent.
Right.
So there were two copies of everything.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Amazing. The amount of paper they must use in the printers
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm curious now, when do you ever reference old-timey writing for inspiration in any fashion?
Yes. And I'm gonna blank. The David McCulloch's 1776 references one of the soldiers who wrote a lot. He wrote a lot of journals, and
Henry Dearborn.
I think that's the name.
He's the one whose dogs they ate when they were walking through Maine.
Yes. Yes.
I've been at this a while.
Yeah, you. and full disclosure, neither of us are historians, and so we've been. It's like we seem to just keep skimming the surface for everything, and then once we find a thing, we'll go down that rabbit hole to mine that bit of information. So I wish. I want to keep learning more. But yeah, contemporary writings, because honestly, I want the way they speak, their dialogue to be. I don't want it to sound anachronistic. I don't want to say, "Hey Ben, yo." I don't want anything like that. But I also don't want it to be clunky. So I like getting a mix, trying to do a mix of especially when people like Ben Franklin or Washington speak. A little more formal, and when Felix would be a little bit less formal. We've also thought, and I don't want to. I'm going to say it, and I'm trying to commit to it. We're creating another Instagram account to add some more depth to the story of Felix's journal. So he's going to be journaling, and it won't be in the comic book. So our super fans can hop over there and get a little more of Felix's mind. And so that's another thing that's tough to do because I want to keep it chronological, and then I get hung up on I don't want to miss something because then I'll have to go back to it and he'll be like, "Oh, asterisk, I forgot to mention this happened." But I wanted to mention significant events, so we could mention the lead up to the battle, and there was this huge storm the night before, and the ships in the harbor, and then following right after the battle in September, there was that little peace conference that the British tried to have that was a failure. So stuff like that, like we can't work it all in, but if Felix mentions it in his journal, and that'll get
very cool. So the new Instagram account you're considering to actually be his journal.
Yes.
That's an awesome idea. That makes a lot of sense too.
I hope we can pull it off.
I think you can. I mean, especially because, like you said, there is just so much history. It's almost impossible to go. Take it from me. I've been trying for several years. It's almost impossible to call. You hit on something there about Felix that I was curious about. Where in, I guess, there were levels of society and your station in society at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I know you had mentioned him as a you had the word
mechanician.
Mechanician. So a mechanician, would that be kind of like an artisan, like a Paul Revere type level of society? He's not, as opposed to like a Ben Franklin, George Washington, speaking 1,000 languages level of society.
Right. Maybe they weren't at a class of society where they could afford the time to become polyglots, or what's the other word when you're good at everything? Renaissance man.
Well, I don't know what you call that back then.
That's a word we use today, but I understand.
Yeah. But they would take their time and specialize in that, and it would have been cutting edge. But I don't think anybody back then would have said, "Yeah, this is going somewhere," like indoor plumbing.
Right. Yeah. I think they would have been a craftsman.
Right.
And an up and coming craft that people didn't understand. I mean, almost, you say it like a car mechanic today, they're indispensable, but a lot of times they're not paid a lot, and they're, they know their craft, but they do their job, and it's rare that they're in the upper echelons of society,
Right.
but they're indispensable, and they're if you find a good mechanic, they're like a doctor. You never want to lose them.
Oh, my guy's
So
got one of my cars right now.
yeah,
But it's funny because 100 years ago, as you were saying, a car mechanic was maybe 130 years ago was
Yeah.
a guy tooling around in his shed,
right.
and that's
Right.
essentially where you found Felix.
Yep. He and his dad. So we still want it to be. We want the feeling to be like people don't quite know what to do with the technology, and we don't outright say what they're doing. So they're at the William Howard Tavern on Long Island, where General Howe goes, and this is all real history. We have them doing something. They've got tools and crates and stuff, and we don't outright say. So we wanted to leave the impression with like almost like now we've got these Tesla batteries. What can we do with them? We can put them in our house. We can put them in our cars. So there's this boiler. What can it do? It can run a mill. It can run pumps, pump water. It can drive a carriage. It's just an engine. Well, and same thing with like Model Ts. They'd hook it up to a track. They're like a tractor engine, or they put a plow on it. They pump water with it. They'd run electricity. So we kind of want these boiler engines. We're calling Franklin boilers, and we've thought about having some competition that are cheaper and they don't work. If we have room to keep building the world, but the Franklin boiler is kind of gonna be like the gold standard.
Well,
boiler.
Of course.
Yeah,
It's got the name. It's got the branding.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's why steampunk works so well for the time period. Because as we were saying earlier, like steam power was actually becoming a thing. Just a handful of years leading up to the revolution, they were building again, like you said. I think water pumps and mines were one of the earliest uses. Forgive me, I'm not extremely well versed on the history of steam power.
I'm a little foggy too. Putting dates to it. I need to look that up. But It's like, again, one of those things that we found out. Yes, it works.
Right.
So
what do we do with it? Right. Exactly. So, fascinating. I'm so excited. Is there anything else we should know about either steampunk in the American Revolution or the American Revolution in steampunk? That's not how I should ask that question. Let me try again. Is there Is there anything else I'll say about the American Revolution involved in your stories that you think this particular audience that's watching an American Revolution show would be interested in?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. We are going to have actual history in this story, and I say that because a lot of times we have approached real historical organizations, and some of them are reluctant, and I get it. They don't want to lend their name to it because it's fiction. And, it's not true. But we are going to have. He's going to follow along with real history. So we would love if someone gets a little. Oh, this happened, and now Felix Ward was there, or the Franklin boiler. But then what really happened, and we're trying to point people to those real events if they're interested, as a something to pick their point. Yeah. And so history for like the three of us here and everybody watching, we love it. We can't get enough of it. I just want so much. But sometimes some people need that kernel, that little bit to fall into it and be just drawn in. So we have a fictional story, and it's fun and fantastical, and we're by no means wanting to diminish or make it silly. We just want it to be exciting. We've got a great story, and we want the people, go find out about Ben Franklin or George Washington or Nathaniel Green or Henry Knox or Sullivan or anything, Lafayette. Who are all these people? And that's something we would really like to impart on people. And so, we know it's fiction.
You made it up.
You don't have to remind us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's very important to remind people is that you are basing it off the actual history. You're just giving it a little flavor to draw people in. I think from what I see, and again, everyone, there's links below for the Kickstarter campaign, which you should go support them on, and as of now, one Instagram account, hopefully a second one soon, which I've been following for well over a year now, probably almost 2 years. The images are amazing, and I hope. What I'm hoping you guys get to do is bring some of the steampunk crowd to the American Revolution, and bring some of the American Revolution crowd over to steampunk, because I like you. I like you am in both worlds.
Yeah, that's been a goal because the a lot of times the steampunk world it may not speak to a certain crowd, so we're grabbing a different crowd. I hope we and draw them in, and then maybe to go off and get into steampunk and the top hats and the goggles and fine.
Yeah, I made my hat out of duct tape.
Yeah.
I took an old water gun. You spray paint them black, and then you take you just take a little bit of gold and with a paper towel and dab it on. We'll have to, you guys will have to come back. We'll do a whole make a costume episode.
Oh man,
yes. Love it.
That's awesome. You know what? I have another question for you. Are there top hats, or do they have steampunk tri-corner hats?
So if you notice, I think you put the image up there. So this is Rory's. He's going to have to do some modifications. It is very piratey right now, but we asked our artists to mash goggles with the tricorn, and our carriage driver there in the opening has a really cool getup. And if people when they buy the comic, they'll read through and get a peek at Ben Franklin and what he's got going on. So we wanted to mash up the tricorns, the garb of the late 18th century with some goggles and with the brass. Yeah,
man, that's amazing. Again, anyone who's watching this that does not know about steampunk, go read about it and you'll know how sweet that hat is.
Yeah, there's a good the steampunk Bible, right? I can't give you the actually
around for a while.
Over on my shelf. I'm looking across the room. We're down here in my basement, so. But yeah, the steampunk Bible is a good one. But yeah, just do a steampunk search for steampunk, and
there's literally everything steempunk.
Yeah, there's one of the jokes. The jokes is glue a gear to it, and it's steampunk. But that's
right.
But steampunk is it's a great style, and it's sometimes one of those things you can say, is it steampunk? But people are really cool in the steampunk crowd, and they're like, yeah, it's steampunk. You're doing something cool.
Yeah, they're not as touchy about it as certain other
right
not to be named reenactment segments of history.
Right. It has a lot of leeway, and they're very accepting. And it's like if you're creative and having fun, steampunk is a riot. It can be. It's fun.
Go to Pinterest, steampunk on Pinterest.
Oh yeah,
I've spent way too much time. Now we've gotten a little off topic, but anyway, gentlemen, we do it all the time here. We wander a little bit. That's fantastic. So let me ask you about yourselves, though. What drew you? I guess Rory, we'll start with you. What is it that first drew you towards studying the American Revolution? I'm sure you, like the rest of us, are a general history nerd, but what about the American Revolution appealed to you in particular?
Being a patriot, number one, served my country. I love it. That kind of drew me in from the beginning. But we went to boot camp, and they teach you the history of the Coast Guard and how far back it goes. It goes pretty far back. Just being a general history buff myself, want to learn everything about anything interesting. Like I'm on a kick now, like French and Indian War. Like who knows about that? What movies are about that? Yeah. So I'm doing deep dives into that. But American history, there's just nothing like it. It is so unique in comparison to the rest of world history that we can start steampunk with it. It's just and everywhere I've been stationed, I've made it a point to do a historical research of that area. I like knowing my local surroundings, why they are the way they are, what was there, who was there, where am I standing, where some famous person stood before me. Yeah. So our A school for our job, the Coast Guard, was in Yorktown, Virginia,
Right.
which is where we won the war.
Oh,
And it was
yeah.
it was perfect. Just everything about it.
There's some things to learn in Yorktown.
There's a couple, one or
yeah.
two.
And it's funny you mentioned the French and Indian War. How long have you lived in upstate New York?
Personally, I'm not. I'm just visiting from Cleveland, Ohio. Currently in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, okay. So now is the time to learn about the French and Indian War while you are in
Yep.
upstate New York. Although I guess it's more War of 1812 came there, but we're again getting off topic.
Yeah.
And Scott, what about you? What is that first attracted you to the American Revolution?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's where it all started, and it is such a turning point that you want to know why. You want to know who are the people that founded our country and made America the way it is, and so you go right back to the beginning, and then people think 1776, but there's so much more before it that led up to it, and it's fascinating. I'm the same with Rory. I want to know why, not just with American history, but I want to know like words, the origin of a word. Why do we say this word? Why is how come geese and moose are plural? And those silly things. I like to dive into those, and so there's so many fascinating characters and so many interesting, so many brave and interesting people that did amazing things, and most of them young at the time, all in a place where they could do this, and there was so much on the line, and so many people that they lost their fortunes in their lives, and it really is. There's so much amazing stuff crammed into that era, and then that was just an interest that was there. And then when we started writing a story, let's use the things we love. It makes it easy. It's just so much fun to study and then write our story around it. It's a blast.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned they were young. That's a good point. I mean, not
Yeah.
all of them, but I mean, even George Washington was what, in his 40s when he became commander in chief?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
As someone who's approaching 40,
Yeah.
makes me feel.
You're in good company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Lafayette, and we thought, well, that was the thing too. When we decided how old's our hero going to be. Of course, it makes it a little more interesting. We got a young hero, and there's peril, and the problems that a young person has to go through. But we thought, well, he can meet up with Lafayette. Lafayette was what,
a few years
16?
old. Yeah. By the time he gets to America,
he wasn't very old.
No, he was a teenager. I don't remember. I want to say 19.
Yeah, 19.
So
you're right. By the time he gets there, I think we decided he and Felix are the same age, so that by the time he gets there, again, this is one like Rory has his lunatic board with the pins and the strings and all that. I have an Excel spreadsheet. I've got.
I usually fall more with Rory. Although when you were mentioning tabs earlier, I am the tab king. Like I'll sit down and be like, all right, let's write about some random American founder, and an hour later I have 30 tabs open with different names. Like, well, I learned a lot. How am I going to write about one of these people?
Right.
Yeah.
How do I put this to condense it down to this much? Yep.
Right.
Yep.
300 words. Okay. Good luck. Like, it's interesting that you make them so young also, because as you do anticipate, continuing the series, and therefore he can, since you are following an actual timeline,
Right.
Yorktown, time passes by then. You can have your character grow and develop with the actual revolution.
Yeah.
When we were first putting it together and he was going through school and learning how the action drives the story, it just makes sense for that young man to be making all these big decisions in important things and to screwing them up.
Yep. And we want him to mess up a lot. So, without spoiling it, screw ups make great stories. So
absolutely.
Things are going to be tough, and he's young, and that he's going to be impetuous. He's going to be foolish.
But a perfect character would not be relatable.
Right. Yeah. A little haughty. We've got a great.
I love that word.
We've got a great screw up coming in later. Not in. He's got. Okay. Oh yeah.
Wait.
He's got some good screw up coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some hijinks and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming by. I, for one, am extraordinarily excited for the
Thanks.
release.
Thank you so
I
much.
Appreciate it.
should
Thanks for
ask you.
having us.
Oh, my pleasure. Now I know you're doing the Kickstarter right now. Do you have an anticipated release date?
Well, the way it works is so Silverline is very adamant about their stories being ready to go. So the moment it's funded, which is looking like it's very soon. So thank you everybody if you funded it. Um, Pretty much the files are finalized. We put all the backers' names into the book. You get to be famous with our book, and then Silverline sends it to the printer. And depending upon their print schedule, it's usually within a couple weeks. Now, also Kickstarter waits a week or more to release the funds. So I know the Silverline and the editor Roland wants to make sure he's got the cash, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
it goes over to the printer, and all of his previous campaigns have been within about 3 weeks. Sometimes, so he had he had South American artists that had to wait for signatures. You know, they wanted the art, so stuff had to wait for the mail. But we've got signatures coming. We've got extra. I sorry to sell it too much, but we'll have extras. We'll have stretch goals. We've got hopefully bookmarks and some extra goodies coming if people push us past our goal. So hopefully by July, if you back it, you'll have your books. And yeah, that's our hope. I'm hoping like July 4th would be awesome if we could have them before.
Oh man, I didn't even think. Of course,
well, it's all dependent on print schedules and all the jobs ahead of it. So we understand. He uses Kablam digital printing out of Florida, Orlando, and they do a great job. So we got our fingers crossed July 4th, but it should be by July. People will have their books in hand with our signature cards if they got those. We'd be honored to do a signature card and extras if we go past our goal. And then after that, they'll be able to order them from silverlinecomics.com, and we'll put a link on. We have steampatriots.us, so of course we'll link back to our publisher.
Yeah.
And we hope, Rory and I hope, to keep some more extras from us. We want to have that. We want to keep the world. We want people to feel like they can get into the Steam Patriots world and have extra goodies. So we're trying to be creative about it and give people, we create our fan base, our diehard fans. We love it. We love it. So really long.
You've got one in me.
Good, great. Yes, thank you.
You won at least one fan today.
Yeah, we got number one fan.
Number one, yes. Founder of the day. Well, guys, thank you again for coming.
Thanks, man. We appreciate it.
It's been great.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Founder fans, again, links in the description below. Make sure you support my Kickstarter. Let's get this book out there, the comic book out there. I don't want to call it a book. I don't know if I'm offending comic book nerds out there. Sorry to my friend Adam. The link for the Instagram account is amazing, and we will throw up the other link when the other Instagram account is created. Tomorrow is Thursday, which means we are going to do our weekly wrap-up where we will discuss the last 7 articles published on Founder of the Day. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and we will be back with that wrap-up tomorrow.